Today I'm having a sit down with one of our pharmacists, Jeff Gaarder, at Dakota Pharmacy. We're going to talk a little bit about something that Jeff's found that's a different arena for pharmacists. I think it's fascinating. So we're gonna visit about that. It's sports pharmacy, which that's a total new terminology to me. Jeff came and introduced me to it and had some questions about my thoughts on him entering into studying sports pharmacy. I think it's a fabulous idea. So how did you initially find out about it?
I initially found out about it. I was listening to a podcast actually, and there was a sports pharmacist on this podcast just basically talking about her role in sports pharmacy and what sports pharmacy was. And so after listening to it, I contacted her through social media and I said, hey, my name, this is how I heard of you. Really interested in what you're doing and I would love to talk with you. And she responded. We set up a time, talked on the phone, and she's really kind of been a resource for me to delve into this and kind of learn about this. And it's really interesting. It's a very new kind of a newer concept, probably within the last couple of years, of putting a pharmacist in on sports teams, working with individuals, individual athletes, sports teams, working with governing bodies, laboratories. Primarily, what a sports pharmacist does is it helps with medication management for athletes, helps with supplement management and choice of supplements for athletes, and then one of the other big things they do is ban substances lists.
Sure.
World Anti-Doping Association, USADA, they help make sure that the substances they're using are either allowed in or out of competition, because there's all different classes of banned substances, or even substances that are emerging that they're not sure if they're going to ban yet or not, and so there's another list like that. So a lot of pharmacists deal with some of that. And then even nutrition. A lot of pharmacists delve into the nutrition side of it and medication and supplements, and that's really kind of where I fit in. Where I think I fit in really well is that I am that can be a resource for like, hey, we want to maximize our team's performance. We're looking into these supplements. What do you think we should be doing? How should our nutrition be, kind of tailored to basically maximize performance? And you can do this with individual athletes. And I think the pharmacist brings a really unique role into that, because we are based in medicine. This is what we do, where, some other disciplines involving sports really don't have the specialized education that pharmacists do.
So for those that don't know, Jeff did completed an Ironman triathlon at the end of the year, at the end of 2024. Were you already in training when you found this, or did you?
No, this was kind of a new thing. So I had done some. I'm a certified nutrition coach. I did an online course for nutrition certification. I started training on this. So I did the Bismarck triathlon here in June. That was my first sprint triathlon, and it just kind of clicked. And I decided that I'm going to do this. And so I had already kind of been involved in the nutrition side of things. Sports pharmacy kind of came in right around that same time, honestly. June, July timeframe is when I learned about this. And and in my experience training for this, it really helped me lock down my nutrition, lock down my supplements, and really take kind of a holistic approach just based on the sheer training volume you do doing something like this.
Sure.
And the sheer stress you put your body through for 6-7 months.
And then you were telling me that they're holding the sport. Is it a society?
Sports pharmacy. They have a professional group, I guess, for lack of a better term, and they're having their first sports pharmacy convention, they call it the Sport Pharmacy Summit, down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in April 11th, and it's their first annual one. When I got involved in this, it was kind of, they were talking about doing this and stuff, and so really excited about that. Some of the people I've met through this, I think it's kind of a small group of people initially, so it's still very much you can bounce a bunch of ideas off. So I'm really kind of excited to actually meet these people in person.
And you're going to this.
Yeah. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited about the clinical knowledge of this, kind of how the pharmacist role can fit in this, where we can develop our role in sports teams and stuff like that, or even just individual athletes. So really looking forward to that. Hopefully we can sit down and talk about it after I come back.
So do you think it'll be strictly pharmacists?
No, it looks like from just the speakers and stuff, I think there's going to be a lot of pharmacists, but there's physicians speaking, there's physical therapists, there's pharmacists speaking. So it looks like a really multidisciplinary role that are going to be there, and I think it's going to be just what I really see sports pharmacy is you kind of become multiple disciplinary. I mean, you have your area of expertise in like medication and supplements, but you also delve into nutrition, you also delve into recovery, stuff like that, so you kind of intermingle with all kinds of disciplines, just like a physical therapist might give some supplement advice or stuff like that.
So it's really an opportunity for a pharmacist to expand their role in the community and what they can offer.
Absolutely.
Even just the general public that's interested in
absolutely
supplementation, their health, some exercise, physiology.
Yeah, so I've reached out to some of the people in the schools and in some of the sports teams around town and said, hey, if you're looking for a resource, I'm available for that. And then also anybody that's looking, let's say you have an Ironman event coming up and you're looking for like somebody to help you with your nutrition or your supplements and stuff like that. That's really where I can fit in and help you out. I mean, that's really what my role should be.
So have you given it some thought about a long-range plan of where this might take your profession? Different than what you thought a year ago?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like I had never even heard of this a year ago.
Yeah.
And I like heard about it. I'm like, this is exactly what I want to do. I love working with athletes. I love working with younger athletes. I love just watching people get better. And if any way I can help that, whether it be through nutrition, whether it be through supplements, whether it be through managing chronic medications that you're taking to help you perform better. And not only, you don't have to be on a team, you don't have to be a professional athlete. If you're a weekend warrior running 5Ks or playing softball with the boys, there's always something. Or you just want to live better. You want to have more energy to play with your kids. If I can help in that role, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so, you and I have had a couple of conversations with some other people in the community and some things that we find even young kids and team sport athletes in the community that have terrible habits.
Oh, yeah.
The ingestion of high caffeine drinks before an event or before they're working out and the dangers of that. I'm assuming you would hope that you might be able to offer your expertise to individuals like that to change their mindset to take the risk out of what
when you're in high school and you're working out and stuff and you're an athlete, you're invincible, right? And I have so many parents that have come and talked to me and they're like, so my son's having trouble sleeping or my son's having a lot of anxiety, and sometimes it's like, all right, what's his caffeine intake? Well, and then you start delving into it and you're like, he's got a lot of, it's not just caffeine, it's a lot of the hidden caffeines in energy drinks. It's a lot of the other things in energy drinks. And sometimes it's just a matter of helping people understand what's in all that stuff and how it's affecting them, or supplements that they're taking, timing of supplements, stuff like that. And that can improve performance right there. How to fuel properly through a tournament. Like I have a daughter who plays basketball and we'll go to tournaments and it's like they'll have potentially 3 to 4 games in an afternoon. It's like, so I work on my strategy of how to fuel her through those games to give her the best chance of keeping her energy up and stuff like that. What your carb intake should be, what your fat intake should be. And granted, she's young, But if I can build those building blocks in those young athletes as it transfers into adulthood. I mean, when I was a kid, you ate whatever, you ate the hot dogs and whatever else you want at the wrestling tournament, you just rolled on.
Right.
And I think there's a lot more to it than that, even at a young age.
Any different approach with young male or young female athletes, or is the science really similar?
I think there's definitely some difference. In fact, I was just listening to a podcast talking about the use of creatine and how it can vary in female athletes versus male athletes. Female athletes have a smaller amount of, I guess, free creatine, so they get a better bang for their buck. According to this podcast, I haven't read the studies that support this. It'd be interesting that they get more bang from the buck from creatine than the male does. Then there's also a little bit of science that endurance athletes, a well-trained endurance athlete doesn't get as much benefit from creatine as like your weekend warrior athlete does. And so, simple supplements like that, there's various differences. There's hormonal differences. There's, whether or not your female athlete, depending if she's a young high school girl that's in her cycle, out of her cycle, there's all kinds of different stuff like that. And I know I have a good friend of mine who does this, who specializes in female athletes. So she's been a great resource if I ever have any questions like
nice.
that. So,
and I would also assume that your approach is going to be different from a 16-year-old to somebody my age.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so I think a lot of high school athletes are looking at the next greatest thing on Instagram. They're like, this guy used this is great, I'm going to use this. And it's like, yeah, it's probably not everything that you're seeing. We can probably do everything you need to do through a good nutrition plan. As you age, we need to maybe supplement that because your body can't utilize the nutrients that we're giving you as well as like a 16-year-old kid. So as they're younger, I try to kind of like just give them a good, well-rounded nutrition plan.
Which would be strictly diet?
Mostly diet. I mean, as they age, get a little bit older, I might add some supplements. But, young kids, I think if we just get their diet, eating whole foods, eating quality foods, their body's still young enough to use those nutrients to the most benefit. As we age, we know that our body isn't quite as efficient as it used to be. So that's where we might need to fill in some of the gaps.
And we talk about this periodically, the ratio of how many carbs and how much protein. That's going to be different for different age groups. And
that differs between sport to sport, where you're looking to do. People are looking at, weightlifters versus endurance athletes. What your protein intake would be like versus your carb intake, stuff like that. People that are in a sport that have weight restrictions, such as wrestlers, weightlifters, stuff like that. We also look at, what your fat, maybe cut down their fat intake a little bit more, maybe bump up their protein. But yeah, younger athletes, again, they're more of, when I say younger athletes, 13, 14, 15, more just trying to get them to eat the way they should.
Sure.
As we age, 16, 17, 18, we can add in some supplements, maybe look at the amount of protein they're eating to maximize their muscle growth strength. So it really depends on the age. I don't like to start supplements too young because I think that's where we just build the foundation of good nutrition. As we age, get into more of the later high school, college age, that's when we add in the supplements.
We've had the conversation in the pharmacy before, and even all ages. A supplemental program really doesn't offer a lot of benefit unless you have a good dietary
foundation for it. Yep. Absolutely.
On
that's
what you're eating.
Nutrition is the foundation for everything. I mean, if we can get you on a good, solid nutrition foundation and fill in the gaps with supplements or get added benefit with supplements, great. But if we need to build that foundation of nutrition first.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's no matter what age. If somebody comes in and is talking to me and they want, they read about this supplement or they want this supplement, if you don't have the foundation of your nutrition, if you're not somewhat physically active, a lot of times you're going to get more bang for your buck starting with those two things than any supplement I'm going to give you. Now, if you're doing all those things right and you're working at it, you want that, absolutely, we can help you out.
Right. Well, I find this really fascinating. And obviously, Jeff's passion for this comes through crystal clear. Again, we're talking about somewhat of a new endeavor in our pharmacy world. as pharmacists. It's called Sports Pharmacy. I can't wait to hear from you when you get back from this first summit. Of this Sports Pharmacy Summit.
Pretty excited about it.
So really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.